X, Y, and Z, but it's through Christianity that we become great.
They condemn racism, but they only condemn whites who happen to be racist.
And in a way, God is just whatever it is that keeps our civilization going.
White people are constantly being told that race is a social construct. It's not even biological.
And you think, where do you belong? Yeah. You belong in a shopping mall. There's nothing to you other than that.
Who can hear me? Let's see. We've been having some problems with the key, so forgive me for a minute while I make sure that I'm actually live. It looks like I'm live. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. Very good. I am indeed live. So thank you everyone for joining me. Welcome to World of Scarcity. And Mark Collette was on here yesterday, and he said that I am really one of the most underrated YouTubers out there right now. So that really struck me in a good way. I was so happy to hear that, and I think he's right. I think we're really onto something here. This is the 5th episode of World of Scarcity, and I really do appreciate those of you who have taken the time to give me some advice and give me your opinions and so on. Obviously, thank you to those of you who have become supporters on my Patreon. I don't have an ending credits yet for the show, but that is coming. So if you support above say $10 a month or so, I'll probably include your name in that, unless you don't want me to, in which case let me know. But yes, as usual though, thank you for joining, and let's begin with a prayer. Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for bringing us together on this hump day to discuss the evil in the world and how it is manifested, especially through the pushing of things like diversity training. Father, we ask that You be a light in our lives, and that we may never, that light may never go out, and that no matter how difficult things become, we can always find a place to turn, and help us to rely on our brethren and our disciples in Christ. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. So, our scripture reading. And yes, we are going to be talking about this woman here, Jane Elliott. But first, from Micah 7. Woe is me, for I have become as when the summer fruit has been gathered, as when the vintage has been gleaned. There is no cluster to eat, no first-ripe fig which my soul desires. The godly man has perished from the earth, and there is none upright among men. They all lie in wait for blood, and each hunts his brother with a net. Their hands are upon what is evil, to do it diligently. The prince and the judge ask for a bribe, and the great man utters the evil desire of his soul. Thus they weave it together. The best of them is like a briar, the most upright of them a thorn hedge. The day of their watchmen, of their punishment has come. But put no trust in a neighbor, Have no confidence in a friend. Guard the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your bosom. For the son treats the father with contempt. The daughter rises up against her mother. The daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men of his own house. But as for me, I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. Yes, God will hear us, hopefully. Hopefully, if we just shout loud enough and podcast and stream loud enough, our God will hear us. So, with that, we turn to Jane Elliott. And this video has 1.5 million views. It's called How Racist Are You? So Jane Elliott, what do you need to know about her? Well, she calls herself a feminist, but she's kind of one of those TERFs, if you will, trans exclusionary radical feminist, because she's from an older time, right? She's also a self-described anti-racist, and she has appeared on Oprah, of all places. I believe sometime in the early 90s she was on Oprah, and she runs these experiments. Now it's a blue eyes brown eyes exercise, as she calls it, and essentially it's psychological abuse, taking her and others who participate in the brown group, taking their hatred out on the proxy, in this case the proxy for the white group, which is the blue-eyed group. So she is the godmother of diversity training, and she goes all over the place. She's done diversity training for big multinational corporations, and if you've ever wondered where all this stuff comes from, well, she has had a big impact on that sphere. She basically was a elementary school teacher who started these experiments in her classroom. You'll see some of the clips in this video, but she was running this on third graders, dividing the classroom up into blue-eyed camps and brown-eyed camps, and telling them that the brown-eyed people are superior to the blue-eyed people. So, clearly we would recognize this, any sane person would recognize this as racist and discriminatory, but that's her point, and she bills herself as an educator, that she's doing this with the best of intentions in mind. She is trying to help white people to educate them on their racist ways and to sway them out of it. And I am going to skip around here a little bit because for copyright reasons I don't want to play the whole thing, and that might bore you, so I've selected, we'll still watch a good part of it, but let's start here. Her aim is to stimulate, in case you didn't, simulate a racist apartheid style. So I am against apartheid and supremacy of any kind. I think that the best solution is if we live under separate systems of government, and I think that history has taught us this quite well. So again, we're watching this documentary with 1.5 million views. She's been on Oprah. Welcome to the stream. Please hit the like button, everybody. I think I got a good show for you here. I'm really excited about it. So let's keep rolling with How Racist Are You? Oh boy. I can't wait to learn. I can't wait for her to educate me. You know, am I racist? How racist am I? I want to know. But that's really the thing. Just in this whole title, I mean, it says it all. How racist are you? Well, that assumes that you are a racist. It already assumes it. If you're white, you're a racist, and it's just a matter of figuring out how racist you are. And, you know, if you have brown eyes, you might be a little bit less racist than people with blue eyes. So they've got them all lined up here in outside of a church. Is it a warehouse? It looks like a church. It's probably one of those old churches that got transformed, right? Because, you know, it's Britain in the 21st century. Who needs religion, right? That's outdated. All right, we're gonna stop it there, and yeah. So let me check in. How are we doing here? Welcome to the stream, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're talking about anti-racism and the diversity. Somebody's saying they can't hear the video. Uh-oh. That's not good. I'm glad I checked. Ah! Gosh. Boomer tech, right? Alright, sorry guys. I'm glad I checked though. Let's start this over again. I mean, you get the idea, right? I don't need to repeat it. Basically, there's 30 participants here, and they don't really know what they're getting into. They just know that they're part of some kind of experiment, and they're going into this warehouse. So that's where we are, and I'm gonna fast forward to there. You can hear it now, right?
Put your legs together. I don't have to straddle them, and I don't have to stand between them.
Okay.
Any volunteers with blue eyes will be bullied and collared.
Over there.
And sent to a holding room with a security guard. For them, the regime of discrimination is already beginning.
Fine. Okay, sit down. Sit.
Yeah, so she's got this very abrasive attitude towards the people in this video, but specifically towards the blue-eyed people, right? And that's by design. Well, we'll get to whether she's acting or not. That's an interesting question. But her whole aim is to bully these people, bully and humiliate this group of blue-eyed white people. I don't see any blacks or Asians with blue eyes. Surprise. But her goal is to humiliate them into complete surrender, to get them to do whatever she wants. And she plays these psychological games with them. And in this case, she's putting a collar around their necks. So, you know, She's not putting a star on their shirts. No. This is different. They're being collared, like in the pogroms. Remember? Okay. So let's see if they.
So masterful.
I don't usually do this, but I'm going to make an exception in your case.
Okay.
Keep your mouth shut.
Okay.
And start now. I don't play second banana. Do you understand that? And if you want to be cute, and if you want to be funny, you...
So, how does she get away with this? I would say she gets away with it because she's an old lady. And just imagine if someone like you or me was going around and, you know, ordering these adults. No. So, and the age aspect is interesting because a lot of the younger people put up more resistance, which is what we would expect, right? Typically, the boomers, their generation got the blunt edge, the brute force of the indoctrination on racism. So they typically, you know, they're less likely to resist, but you do get some people who speak up. But I don't want to ruin it for you. Let's continue.
You are in the wrong place. You got the wrong color eyes and you got the wrong attitude.
Okay.
By the way, who else? Why? Okay, on the topic of her getting away with it, was there somebody in history who praised blue-eyed people, like a certain master race or something? I wonder if that has anything to do with why she chose blue eyes as a test subject and to broadcast this to people. I wonder if there's any psychological pre-programming that's already in our brains around this.
Now you're bound to find this less and less amusing as the day goes on. Save yourself. Go over there.
Okay.
Yeah, so this guy, you know, they're amused at it, right? And this is kind of I've noticed this about whites. They kind of, how should I say it? They take abuse in a certain way, and I have this habit myself too. I don't know that it's just a white thing, but I do see it most often in white people, where when they experience abuse or some kind of anti-white hatred, the tendency is to smirk about it and like, wow, like I can't believe how extreme this is. And that's where a lot of the memes come from, isn't it? Just like this clown world stuff, and it's really sick and vile, but well, I think there's a certain coping mechanism that happens. We don't really want to face it head on, so we laugh it off. But she's very serious, believe me. Let's skip ahead here.
The blue-eyed group is now isolated and out of earshot. The scene is set for the next phase of Jane Elliott's regime. Her plan is to get the brown-eyed group...
So she's taken them back into this room so that she can talk with the brown-eyed group. And they're just supposed to hang out here for a while.
...to turn against the blue eyes.
I'm going to also focus on these signs. They're kind of interesting, right? This says, blue eyes make good secretaries. And, okay, so you got these black and white signs, and they've got these stencil feels to them. I guess it's supposed to make it look more like olden times a little bit. So the whole thing, the whole shtick really is, okay, we're simulating or mimicking life in the 60s for black people. And so we've got these signs like no blue-eyeds allowed, and blue-eyeds make good secretaries, and aren't blue-eyed people dumb? Yeah, interesting, huh?
But why? What is she trying to achieve?
And then we're gonna flash back, but you know, it's interesting here, the comparison of because they specifically don't say we're gonna separate you by race. That would be too cliche and divisive, right? So they've got this technique where, okay, I'm gonna divide them by eye color, because that's not the same as race, but it's also an immutable characteristic that people can't change. Well, the problem with that is that eye color is a proxy for race. As I mentioned, I don't see any black, blue-eyed people there. And so, yeah, obviously recessive gene and everything. And it would have been better, in my opinion, to have done, you know, if you really wanted to avoid the connotations of race, to tie it to something more random, such as attached or unattached earlobes. Why didn't she pick that? Well, because that has no basis in race. It's purely something that's kind of silly. And so, but no, she wanted to make this a racial thing, but she was too cowardly to go and just say, okay, this is racial. And the other interesting thing of doing the brown-eyed, blue-eyed thing instead of race is that you get white people with brown eyes on that team, if you will, and that creates an interesting dynamic, as we'll see. So yeah, it's unfair to discriminate based on eye color, but you know, somehow this is an apt comparison to skin color, except it's not. Well, you know what, we can actually measure one of these things, and one of these things is a better predictor, right? You know, race is a much better predictor for outcomes than eye color, and that's because you've got some of this crossover, as I mentioned.
It was the 60s when Jane Elliott devised her exercise. She was a school teacher in a small, all-white American town. America in 1968 was a segregated country. Black Americans were dying, battling for their basic civil rights.
Okay, black Americans were dying, battling for their civil rights. I don't know, maybe one died. This is like where Heather Heyer gets into a car accident, and then they say, you know, Americans are dying at the hands of neo-Nazis or something. It's like, okay, how many, and in what context? Who are you calling part of this group? What time frame? You know, obviously black people are killing black people now, and so are more black people dying now than back then? That would be an interesting stat to look at.
When Martin Luther King was assassinated, it had a profound effect on Jane Elliott. She was determined to find a way to show her 8-year-old pupils what was wrong with racism.
You think?
Oh, I'm sure she was determined. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm an advocate for children, first and foremost, really. I always will be. That's why I don't like seeing even other races treat their children badly. It's not something I like, and most people are averted to that. And so to see this woman, this school teacher in a position of authority, bullying kids, it turns the stomach, doesn't it? But we must plow on.
Think you know how that would feel to be judged by the color of your skin? No, I don't think you would know how that felt unless you had been through it, would you?
Look at that guy. He's like...
She wanted them to...
He's like... Oh boy, here we go. This woman. He knows what's up.
Understand how discrimination by something as arbitrary as eye color is unfair and illogical, as it is to discriminate on the basis of skin color.
Right, so it's illogical and unfair to discriminate. Well, here's the problem, is that everyone discriminates. You have to discriminate, and when you're dealing with governments especially, you can't just treat people as individuals. It would be nice, you know, but we have to have, if we want to have a nation, we can't just treat everybody in the world as if they are the same. You know, that's why we make this distinction between citizen and non-citizen. And what does it even mean to have a country if there isn't this blood tie?
How many in here have blue eyes? Okay, how many in here have brown eyes? It might be interesting to judge people today by the color of their eyes. I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating.
I mean, look at the propaganda here. Like, this is I'm not even gonna say artful, because that's a disgrace to art, but they've got this kid
Marvelous,
here,
cooperative,
this
wonderful,
guy, he's
thoughtful
smiling,
children
right? He's just a
turn
happy
into
kid, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's given permission to discriminate based on eye color, and all of a sudden he's this evil, wretched thing, and ooh, what a bad guy, and he's pointing his finger because he's better than this other person.
nasty, vicious, discriminating little third graders. They were ghastly.
Wow. I mean, I can't believe that this woman was in charge of children. Look at how she describes them. They're nasty, vicious, ghastly. I mean, okay, is it possible they were just having a fun time with it? I mean, yes, I know that kids can be cruel, but for one thing, this isn't even in a time, you know, all those kids that I saw back there were white. I don't know if I saw any non-white kids, and that's because it's the 60s, right? So she clearly couldn't divide them into, you know, black and white, because they didn't have enough blacks, right? It was mostly an all-white school there, and that's interesting, right? So she somehow is getting these children to turn on themselves, and she'll come back to the third graders later on, but now is when we get to the actual experiment. And they set up this area in the warehouse with 3 rows of chairs. The middle row of chairs is facing the front stage, her, and then the outer rows of chairs are facing towards the row in the middle, which, you know, the middle row is for the blue-eyed people, the outer rows are for the brown-eyed people. So this is kind of panopticon type thing, watching the watchers, if you will. Okay.
Britain.
That's not what I wanted. Let's skip ahead there.
When you do this exercise in a kind way, people think you're weak and they do not listen. Do I have your attention? Yeah. Do I have your attention? Oh yeah, damn right. And I intend to have your attention.
Look at her. It's funny because later on she will say things like, oh, I have blue eyes. Someone asks her, why aren't you with us, the blue-eyed people? Why don't you have a collar on? She says, oh, because I act like a brown-eyed person. And here she's demonstrating that. She's acting very much like a brown-eyed, brown-skinned person here. Oh, yeah, I bet I have your attention. and this is just the kind of behavior that you often see from liberals, where they're pretending to be black or something, and nobody takes kindly to that. The blacks don't like it, whites usually don't like it, so I think it's just it just shows what an awful character she is. You'll see that here now.
Because there's nothing polite about racism.
The all-white blue-eyed group is now isolated in a holding room. At this stage, none of the brown eyes know Jane Elliott's true intentions: to turn them into a group willing to take part in humiliating the all-white blue eyes.
The purpose of this exercise is to let these nice blue-eyed white folks find out how it feels to be something other than white in the UK for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so, oh yeah, white people, they don't know how it feels to be discriminated against, right? I mean, is that your experience, guys? Have you ever been discriminated against? Oh no, I mean, you're banned from all social media if you say white pride, but no. We have no idea what it feels like to experience discrimination, right? Oh, this guy's funny.
They are not going to like it because I don't like them. They've already been.
Yeah, we know you don't like them. I mean, that you've made that pretty clear already. Thank you very much, Ms. Elliott.
Been abusive. They've already been belligerent. They've already tried to make a joke of something. Can you make a joke of racism?
No, I can't.
No, I didn't think so. Can you make a joke of racism? Can you make a joke of racism? Let me put it this way. You laugh and I'll change the color of your eyes so f***ing fast you won't know what hit you. You got it?
So there's a threat, a physical threat, because you change the color of someone's eye. Well, how do you do that without genetic engineering? You give them a black eye, right? So physical threats, apparently. And, it sounds a little less threatening just because she's an old woman, but in this position, she's got all the power, and if you'll notice, she's got her big thugs that come around and do the things for her, which you'll see here. But, yeah, this whole, don't make a joke about racism. As I already talked about, I think white people, that's kind of how they deal with this kind of trauma. Okay, so excuse me. First we laugh, then we get really, really pissed. That's how it goes. Don't push us.
You get angry about racism?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
You do? All the time?
Yeah.
Why? Is there something wrong with you?
No.
No? Is there something wrong with racists?
Yes.
Damn right. If you want...
And notice here, racist, it's just code word for white, right? I mean, that's what people are picking up on now, finally, is that anti-racist means anti-white. And so this guy evidently is more than happy to participate in this. He's eating it up, frankly.
If you want to see a decrease in the level of racism in your society, the first thing you have to do is let white people find out how it feels to be on the receiving end of it.
So here, yeah, this is our little experiment that we're starting here. Let me jump over into chat, see if anything came up that I need to look at. Not really. If you do send me a super chat, I will get to it at the end. So let's plow on, and we're going to jump ahead to 11 minutes. There we go. Oh yeah, they've got these panelists who are watching them up at the top. I've cut most of that out in my presentation here on my review of this because it's just so like simplistic and anti-white, exactly what you'd expect from a mainstream production. I don't actually know where this aired, or if it was even on TV. Maybe it was something they were pitching to TV networks. But yeah, these guys are... It's just constantly like, wow, the white people aren't picking up on the lesson yet. Wow, the white people are really slow. It's amazing they haven't picked up on this. So
discrimination.
But brown-eyed adults are much tougher to bring into line than children, and Jane Elliott's style soon hits a nerve with some of the white volunteers.
What they learn today, they will either leave in this room or take out of this room in a very positive way.
But these people are people. You're assuming that they're racist. You're assuming they've got a lesson to be learned. You know, we could be racist.
Oh, I'm sure you are. I'm sure every person in this room. You didn't listen to me.
You're assuming I've got a racist attitude just because they're blue-eyed.
If you live in the UK,
you're saying that they've got more to learn.
Oh boy, now we're getting testy. Oh, somebody isn't agreeing with the program. What? Yeah. It gets better though. This is really incredible.
I just think the logic's a bit faltered to try and reduce discrimination, racism.
Listen, Sonny, I don't care what you think.
Racism.
I don't care what you think. Do you understand that?
But isn't it kind of contradictory?
Do I give a damn? Do I care? You trade places with him.
But it's kind of contradictory. This guy must. I think he probably listens to Stefan Molyneux. You know, I'm surprised he didn't say like. You know, yelling at people is not an argument or something like that. You know.
Right now.
Why?
Not because I told you to. That's the only reason you need. Go back there.
Yes, sir. Mom.
So I don't know. I don't know if you caught that. Let me back it up here, because it's very subtle, but they left it in there. See if you catch this.
Because I told you to. That's the only reason you need. Go back there.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Mom. Whoa! What was that? What did I see there? It's as if he was pointing to something in the distance, with his hand outstretched, and then he says, "Yes, sir." Huh. Oh man, but I mean, you know, that's what is running through every sane person's mind when they're watching this or engaged in this is, wow, this person is very dictatorial. And she would say, oh, that's okay. She'd come up with all these excuses for why that's okay, but she's just hurling insults and abuse intentionally. And so this guy, you know, he may or may not have given a little hail there.
Well,
some of us white folks would rather not see white folks verbally, psychologically, mentally, and emotionally abused for a few minutes. Would rather not hear white folks described in...
Yes, we don't want to see white people being abused. Like, wow, what a revelation. Oh, that makes us such bad people because we don't want to see white people being abused. How terrible.
In an unpleasant way for a few minutes. Did you get that lesson? Did you get that message? Now, if you consider this exercise too evil for you to go through it, then you need...
But also, notice, she's now definitely talking about race. Like, in the beginning, okay, it's all brown eyes, blue eyes, whatever. But now, almost without thinking about it, I just learned to snap properly. You know, there we go. So without even thinking about it, she switched to race. That's very interesting.
Need to be somewhere else.
I would much rather be on the blue-eyed side than the aggressor side.
I don't care where you'd rather be. Now, are you going to cooperate or not?
I'm saying I would much rather be on the receiving end.
I'm asking you if you're going to cooperate or not.
And notice they have to put that music in there, that conflict music. And that tells you that, okay, something's heating up. Because otherwise you'd just watch this and you'd be like, wow, she's obviously, like, they can't just leave this uncut, if you will.
Exercise for them to understand this is what comes to you because of how you look. It's a learning process.
An exercise that removes choice and freedom and autonomy.
But you don't have a choice. I don't have a choice to be a black woman. It was assigned to me when I came into this world. You are a black female.
Yes, you do not have a choice as to whether you want to be a black woman. You do have a choice as to whether you choose to live in this, whether you want to live in white countries or not. You can leave. FYI.
The choice that I'm talking about is a choice of whether I decide to be an aggressor, to be someone who marginalizes these people.
Look, wait a minute. I don't have time. I do not have time to convince this young man that what we're doing is all right. There's no way I'm going to convince him of that, and I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Get this young man out of here. Now, do any of the rest of you want to leave? Because
so more awkward silence, but wow, is this not a metaphor for censorship? Oh, you said something that is talking about facts and logic that goes against my point. Well, we can't have that. You gotta get off of this platform, buddy. This guy, whew, he's a rebel, I tell ya. He's one of those white supremacists in the making, I'll bet. Let's see what happens.
Here are your choices. You're either going to cooperate or you're going to leave. It's as simple as that. I don't have time for this nonsense.
Exercise
I
your
don't
freedom,
have time for this nonsense.
You can marginalize yourself to that lady there. It's your choice.
Yeah. Nobody has to stay and take this kind of abuse. If I were to be involved in this experiment and I was one of the blue-eyed group peoples, I would, I'd probably do what he did and I'd probably get myself kicked out pretty early on, because I wouldn't, unless I had seen this before, I wouldn't know just how dictatorial she is going to be and that she is just going to physically remove people. And look at that physical removal. She's not, this person isn't conforming to the standards of the society, and so she takes upon herself to remove him. Isn't that very effective? Isn't that an effective method of dealing with problems? Yeah, she didn't have to be aggressive, just said, okay, you can leave, get out.
What do you think is the effect of her throwing him out on the rest of them?
The majority of this group are committed to what she wants to do. And notably, it's the white members of the group who are uncertain about it and unhappy about it.
This guy looks like a blue jay to me here. That guy in the middle.
Another one's walking out.
People in majority positions, powerful positions,
another
for example,
another one walks
don't
out.
see there's a problem with racism, and it's a really fundamental problem. They just don't see there's an issue, and this is what we're getting here as well.
No, you fool! They see there's an issue. They just see that there's a double standard, and they don't like that. Because white people, for some weird reason, we don't like hypocrisy. I don't know. We actually take universal values and morals seriously. What the heck is wrong with us, right? Seriously, what's wrong with us?
There's the white people in this brown-eyed group are kind of saying, look, do we really need to do this? Is it really necessary? And she's trying to convince them, and the rest of the group are convincing them that it is necessary.
Now, if you think I'm being too harsh on her and him, You ain't seen nothing yet. Because those blue-eyed people are going to come in here and try... Are you going to support them? Are you going to support them? Are you going to support them? You? You? Now, here's
so she's trying to get conformity from people, so that they don't cause any problems. Are you going to be a problem when I bring these when I bring my victims in here to mentally screw them? I don't want any problems. You know what happens to people who cause problems? They get physically removed.
What's going to happen? All I want you to do is act white. You white folks know how to act white. You've been doing it all your lives. You know how to act white? I think so, yeah. Sure you do. You know how to act white? You know how to act white?
Not really.
Well, can you when you have to?
Just look down your nose at everyone.
Can you?
Jeez. The anti-white hatred is coming in hot and heavy here. Just look down your nose at everybody when you see them coming. Wow. This is what people really think about us, I guess. I mean, not everybody. Obviously, there's some black people who are allies and stuff, but yeah, this kind of stuff, people fall for it, and it's sick. I did want to point out, though, this woman, someone said that she's part of the Chosen. I don't think so. I haven't confirmed that. I'm pretty sure her father or something was an Irish descendant. So I cannot confirm that that's the truth of the matter. And it doesn't even need to be. She's a traitor. She's a despicable traitor.
Can you when you have to?
Yeah, I suppose it.
Do you know how to act white?
Of course.
Oh, sure you do. You know you do, and I know you do.
Yeah, so here she's being all chummy, and this probably gives her all kinds of good feelings. Like, I even fell into this to some degree when I was more, libertarian, or I was never left, but I would, I would see my mannerisms change when I was around black people, and I couldn't really explain that. Like, why am I doing this? I'm not trying to be like black people, but it's just part of being in a group which has this dominance. They don't back down. They're not afraid of themselves, and they're not afraid to assert who they are as black people. They have solidarity with each other. So when you're in that kind of environment, you can feel really out of place, right? And it's like, oh, maybe I can blend in. To some degree, I know maybe what it's like to be a Blue Jay, because it's like, maybe I can blend in here if I really try, but I'm not very comfortable. Yeah, but that's what she's doing.
Room with just 4 chairs.
Cool, she's friendly, isn't she?
Actually, she was very rude.
And monitored by security cameras.
What do you have in your mouth?
Nothing.
You aren't chewing gum?
Somehow I got off track here. Sorry about that. I think we were somewhere around this point.
Too harsh on her and him? You ain't seen nothing yet.
What do you think's the effect of her throwing him out on the rest of them?
You act white? You know how to act white?
Not really.
Well, can you when you have to?
Just look down your nose at everyone.
Can you? Can you when you have to?
Yeah, I suppose it.
Do you know how to act white?
Of course.
Oh, sure you do. You know you do, and I know you do.
Yeah, this guy will come up again. He's actually half black, and he has some interesting things to say later on.
With 2 volunteers gone, Jane Elliott seems to have quelled the brown-eyed dissent. But back in the 60s, when she divided her original school class, she was shocked by how readily the brown-eyed group took to their superiority.
What happened, John?
Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut.
She was even more alarmed by the blue-eyed group.
Okay, so, you know, here she is experimenting on children. I mean, it shouldn't come as, you know, why isn't she experimenting on children today, right? Well, because the outcry would be enormous, and rightly so. I mean, anybody, any self-respecting person would see this kind of abuse against children and just want to, you know, throw a right hook at the person. This is atrocious. But because of the authority of the public school system, and, you know, you're trained, everyone in the society is trained, they have to respect the authorities, and because, frankly, we lost control of our education systems, people like this were allowed to come in and perform psychological warfare on our children. It's remarkable. So what does she say? The brown-eyed children loved their superiority. I mean, yeah, it's probably like a game to them, okay? They liked having this this role-playing game, and the blue-eyed children, she says, underperformed. Okay, great. You know, you've proven that white people don't like to be oppressed. I don't think that was ever in question, but yes, you've proven we don't like to be oppressed by other people. Wow. Somehow, like, this is going to change my opinions on race realism or something? Get out of here.
They gave up. Their heads went down. They underperformed. Jane Elliott felt she had seen the world in microcosm. Her exercise showed what racism was, an immoral and irrational social construct that people were far too quick to sign up to.
And the way that she dealt with that is by being racist back to them. This is the karma that erodes the souls and decency of these people, if they have any left. This desire for vengeance of supposed collective crimes, right? Okay, we're just going, it's karma! You've got it coming! I don't know, if I have to read another stupid comment that says, like, oh ho ho ho, this is karma. How does it feel now, white man? Ha ha ha. Yeah.
The blue-eyed group.
Now, whether or not I like them, we're going to let these people in here.
So, yeah, one more thing on the past segment that I wanted to add. That she says that people were far too quick to sign up to this, right? And this is the whole thing. It's like there's never enough that you can do, right? If you are against racism, I mean, actually, she thinks there is enough. She thinks that exactly what she's doing is enough. She's actually doing enough. But other people, they're not doing enough. And it doesn't matter, like, it's not just enough to not speak up about these things and to stay silent, you know. If you're if you just don't have an opinion on the thing and you try to stay apolitical, well, it's your fault too. So, yeah, the people in the 60s, there was obviously pushback back then, and well, if it's true that people were really quick to pick up on anti certain group sentiments, then this is more evidence that the races probably shouldn't be residing in the same country, right? Like, why are you trying to fix the problem? And you think the problem is just white people, which is foolhardy, but why are you trying to fix white people, like, in this multicultural environment? Like, if it hasn't worked so far, what makes you think that more and more pressure and oppression and, quote, reverse racism or whatever it is, what makes you think that's going to be successful? And also, what are you going to do if it doesn't work? If it's not possible to make these evil white people conform? Is your solution just to do away with white people? That's a very interesting question.
And you're going to see to it that they understand that we have created a situation for them to learn, that we did this for their own good. And how should they feel about that?
I'm reminded of the book by Alice Miller, For Your Own Good, where she talks about physical abuse towards children, and how oftentimes the parents will say, this is for your own good. And the same type of people who would say, oh, that's a valid argument, are oftentimes the people coming out against all this supposed racism stuff. And it's a dumb argument. Like, you need to give evidence that that berating white people is somehow for their own good. Make the case. I'm listening.
Grateful, and if they aren't grateful, what does that prove about them? They're ignorant, they're ingrates. No matter what you do for them, it isn't enough. That's just the way these people are.
More insults.
The Blues have now been waiting in the holding room for 2 hours.
Time to go then.
Lovely time too.
They're about to discover what it's like to be on the receiving end of Jane Elliott's dictatorial regime.
If one of
No. They've been on the receiving end their whole lives. Okay. I'll give you examples. Affirmative action is discriminatory towards white people. The media is discriminatory towards white people. Education is discriminatory towards white people. Somehow, like, you have this idea that just never experienced it before, and I'm gonna have I'm gonna open their eyes. Oh, this one act where I strike up empathy in them, it's going to change everything. No, she doesn't believe that. She's just trying to break their souls so that they conform to her whip.
one of these boys tries to come at me, what are you going to do?
Protect you.
Protect me, thank you very much. Change places with her.
So what do you think is going to happen?
Also, this might be a good time to ask the question: is she actually putting on an act here? I don't think so. I don't think this is. I mean, it is to some degree because it's part of the thing. She probably, if she walked around, just the street, she probably doesn't see a blue-eyed person and just start yelling at them. Although that would be pretty funny, I guess, in some ways. But no, so she's embellishing it, but I do think the hatred is real. I think it's there because she's really darn good at it.
When the Blues come in now, quick predictions.
I think the Blues are going to stick together.
I do agree with Dominic. They will stick together. I think one person will probably leave.
Get in here and sit down. They look very intelligent to you? Look very aware? Look very interested? Get up here and sit.
So now it's been a little time, so to summarize, if you're just joining us or whatever, there's this experiment being run by this evil woman, former school teacher, if you can believe that, and she does experiments on white people to prove how racist they are, and to whip them into conforming to her every whim. And now, you know, they've divided up the groups. They've also gotten rid of the white people who objected to the whole experiment, that were on the brown-eyed side. So now we're left with a couple white people who are questionable about the whole thing, kind of, but they don't speak up, and some you know, the Muslims, it looks like blacks, etc.
Sit down. Get up here and sit down. Get up here. You're not sitting in the brown-eyed group. Get up here and sit down. You're not sitting in the brown-eyed group. Get up here and sit down.
My initial reaction was, we're into a them and us situation. I spotted immediately that the group of the brown-eyed people were looking very aggressively at us.
Oh, well, I did miss it, but one of the signs that was on there, it said you can't tell one blue-eyed from another, which I just thought was kind of funny, because you know, obviously it's like trying to stereotype the comments, that the quote racist things that white people say about other groups. And one thing you hear them say is that, you know, this group kind of looks the same, I can't really tell them apart, and somehow that's supposed to be racist. And it's like, how do you know that's racism? They are trying to differentiate people, and is it their fault that they have problems? I don't think it is. I mean, we've seen studies that show that babies, like, their eyes gravitate toward women of their own race, the mothers their own race, and you know, somehow this is supposed to mean that the baby is born racist or something. And it's just like, no, that's an evolutionary thing, because typically who's going to care for the baby? It's going to be their family, it's going to be their extended family, and an extended family and race are just variables of scale, not kind, right? So I thought that was a funny sign.
They were looking very negatively at us, and I knew immediately that we were in for it.
Get up here and sit down. You're not sitting in the brown-eyed group. Get up here and sit down. Now, if you'll look behind you, you'll see that most of these chairs... Don't move for her. Get out of there.
Jane Elliott now begins to make life very difficult for the Blues.
Do you have a physical problem that will be made worse by sitting on the floor for an extended period of time?
Possibly, but I think I'll be okay.
Possibly, but she thinks she'll be okay. If we find...
That bit looked like acting. You know. She's definitely embellishing on her performance here.
Find out later that she isn't okay, who's she going to blame it on?
Us?
Us. So am I going to take that answer?
No.
No. Do you or do you not?
I do.
Was she lying?
This woman is like literally a feminazi. I mean, I know that's so 2015, but she really is a feminazi. It's a little cringe in 2018, but it fits, right?
Lying before?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, she said possibly, but I think it'll be okay. Did she lie to us?
Yes.
What do you know about blue-eyed people?
Liars.
Liars. That guy is really loving it. This black guy, I don't know, he's like, pinch me, am I dreaming? I'm allowed to pick on white people, well, of course he's always allowed to pick on white people, so this is the Cuck Island after all.
You find that amusing? Don't laugh at her. She makes you look real bad.
The Blues will be put through a series of classroom exercises, basic, even childlike in their simplicity. Jane Elliott has used these over the years.
Now let's skip ahead. They're gonna cut through to some scenes from previous experiments that she's had with people. I'm going to skip over that part.
Blues start to fight back.
Getting right along. You do understand, you understand then that you understand that you are being discriminated against. Yes. Do you understand that you're being discriminated against?
Downright
Do you understand that you aren't liking?
It's funny what she says there. Discrimination and downright rudeness. So you know, this is how whites kind of think. It's like her biggest offense isn't that she's discriminating. Her biggest offense is that she's being rude. That's kind of amusing.
What you're having.
But of course, like, the Anglos are literally the most polite people in the world. Somebody tried to tell me that the Japanese were the most polite people in the world. The Japanese aren't the most polite. Japanese are respectful. But nobody can take that title away from the Anglos. Okay.
You need to know that that's not important to me. What's important to me is every time you argue, you prove that what I said about you is true. That you're argumentative, that you're belligerent, that you're uncooperative, that you're uncivilized, that you don't follow the rules, that you want to have things your own way, that you are a...
Well, that's one of these Gordian knots that she's getting people into. You know, if you disagree with me, then you're just being argumentative, and you prove my point. So, are you argumentative? What do you say? I say you're argumentative. Are you argumentative? No. Oh, you're arguing with me. I knew it. Yeah, it's like it's one of these things. You can't win. So she's just playing this game with them to try to drill them down.
Accustomed to using power, and that you don't understand.
You're using your power.
Do you understand what's going on here? Yes. Tell them what's going on here. And the tall white male.
Basically, it's a lot of people are totally unaware that discrimination goes on as much as it does.
Hey, I want to know what happens when it happens. When it happened to you the last time, what happened?
Wait. No. You don't have to answer that question.
So this guy is chiming up. He's like, it makes a valid point. He's like, when is the last time that this happened to you? He says this to one of the brown-eyed people. And then she jumps in there. Oh, no, you can't have... No. We're not going to let you have a discussion. Again, this is just like Twitter, folks. This is just like... to a lesser degree, YouTube. You know, a lot of these... big places, they don't want you actually having a discussion over these things, because then reasonable people on the other side might be persuaded.
Yes, you do. Say what you want to say.
You don't have to answer that question.
Say what you want to say.
When it happens out there in the real world, people make a stand. It's against the law, and people make a stand. Now I'm making a stand. Enough.
And guess how much attention I'm going to pay to that.
You have a free choice. You have a free choice.
No.
Who wants to listen to David speak? Don't listen to her. Speak.
She is not running this show. Take her out of here. Take her out of here.
Got some drama going on. And so another person is removed.
I understand what you're doing. I'm just saying I don't understand.
What does this one say? You let in one blue eye.
Why?
And there goes the whole neighborhood. Right? I mean, oh, these blue-eyed people, they're just ruining everything, right? In what way? Oh, they're trying to present arguments. Yes, well, if you don't like arguments and facts and logic, you're really not going to like blue-eyed people.
I've spent the morning with these people and none of them are racists.
Just because my skin isn't black, I mean, I'm you probably noticed, a little bit tubby. I've been discriminated. Yeah, I am. I've been discriminated with that all my life.
Look at this guy. Okay, so the Brits, they're very known for their self-servingness. They like to dish it out towards themselves, and this shows what a great sense of humor they have, and what a what a strong moral character is that they can make fun of themselves. And okay, I'm being a little picky here, but I do think to some degree that is a good skill to have, to be a little self-deprecating. I do think that the Great Britons, they take it a little too far, right? But yes, let's listen to what the man has to say here.
Life. I still put up with it. I face it. I go into shops and see a nice shirt. Oh dear, they don't do my size. Oh well, I'll have to put up with it, won't I?
You can lose your tubby.
But you can't
change the color of your skin.
Unfortunately, there's a small minority that will use...
You can lose your tubby, but you can't change the color of the skin. See, and this is why I said she's an older feminist. She's one of those TERF types, because she doesn't realize that what she did there was fat shaming. You know, you're supposed to be healthy at any size. So I'm sorry, Miss Elliott, but you're fat shaming. And that's not acceptable in this progressive world. We're going to have to get you out of here. Sorry. Go on. You can leave.
Use the word racism, they bandy it around when it's not. Let's use the word political correctness. You're not allowed to use the word gollywog anymore. To me, it's not offensive to you. I don't bar black shit. What's that about?
What's strange is that you've got the blue-eyed
This is kind of funny.
people actually sort of arguing that racism isn't a problem.
Yeah, the blue-eyed people are defending.
Oh, look at this smarmy guy. The blue-eyed people are defending.
Saying, you know, we all have to suffer. It's difficult for all of us. You know, the guy's saying, well,
what's with these silly blue-eyed people? They're not taking it. Why? We must increase the voltage. That'll help.
I can't get the right size shirts. You know, this kind of thing. And they're still not recognizing the difference in the scale of what's being experienced.
Oh, they're still so ignorant. Oh, you know, just, oh man, if only they would learn, but they're just so stupid, I guess. The condescension and projection is palpable.
Experienced by minority groups as opposed to what most people in society are putting up with, which are minor inconveniences by comparison.
So I'm sensing, do people really understand what is racism? The group of the blue eyes are white people. They're living in their world. So we're asking them to live in a world of what it's like to be black or Asian, which is quite difficult to do in 2 hours. So in their minds, it's like, well, racism doesn't exist, because it doesn't exist to them.
So, you know, then they cut away. That's supposed to be the big moment. Oh, the profound thing. Racism doesn't exist to them. Well, as I already mentioned, racism does exist to us. We experience it. Affirmative action is one example. Censorship is another. And frankly, every time we try to have our own spaces and to have pride in who we are and our ancestors, we get compared to Hitler. The worst bad guy in history, apparently. And how do you think, Letitia, whatever your name is, how do you think that makes us feel? Can you just empathize with us a little bit, just for 1 second, instead of playing the victim all the time? Please. It's just pure projection. Racism doesn't exist to them, and they don't seem to see racism that's directed at whites. Let's jump ahead here. Boop, boop, boop. Thank you all for joining the stream and being with me tonight. I hope you're finding this enjoyable. Yeah, this little video, I didn't know about it, and my wife told me about it, and apparently it's gotten a lot of views. Like I said, she's been on Oprah and everything. So we're gonna do a takedown here. Well, we're mid takedown. Let's go.
The brown eyes to be getting more energized about criticizing them.
The Browns aren't joining in a lot, though, are they?
No. I think that probably represents which country you're doing this exercising. Whereas America, there is a strong divide, or Australia or South Africa. In this country, it's more subtle. So even though they may have an opinion, they're sort of keeping it quiet to themselves.
Do you get angry about racism?
No.
You don't?
No.
I was brought up by my mum, who's white, grandma, who's white, my auntie.
So they've got this guy here who is a mulatto, and he's a key player in all this, so keep your eye on him.
Who's white, my cousin who's white. I mean, my family is white, so the only thing that isn't white is my appearance in terms of my mannerisms and everything else. So I play the game, and part of my playing the game is avoiding the situations where somebody could have a negative stereotype of me based on my name, what I look like. And I think that's it, because once somebody sits down and have a conversation with me, they realise I'm not the things that potentially their stereotypes would dictate I should be like.
Okay, let's analyze what he said there. He said, everything about me is white, except for my appearance. You see, it's just skin color. It's you know how they have albino black people in Africa? He's the opposite. He's just a dark white person. You heard him. Everything except his appearance. Now, he in the next sentence he says, well, except for things like my mannerisms, which I didn't quite. Something doesn't jive there. I don't know if maybe he doesn't have the white IQ that a lot of people have or something. He doesn't realize that mannerisms are different than appearance. But okay, let's just go with this. Everything about me is white. Okay, I guess he means he's culturally white, right? He was raised by white people. Okay. But that's still, so scientifically we know it's a lie, because you do have white DNA in you. Your I guess might have been father or mother was black, and so you have part of that haplogroup mixture, and that it's likely to impact you some way. You know, almost nobody ever gets just the genes of one parent, right? You always get something from the other parent. And so is it possible that in this case what he got from the black parent was mostly appearance and not mannerisms? I guess that's possible, but you know, it's just this story to try to naxalt you and to condition you for civic nationalism, right? It's well, you know, not all blacks are violent, and they're not all like these terrible stereotypes that you racists make them out to be. But even if it's only a predisposition towards a certain behavior, which you manage to overcome in your environment, that's great, okay. But when you have children, you are possibly going to pass that down to the kids. So there is an extra level of risk, even if you somehow manage to avoid that whole black culture thing, you're raised white, etc. Genetically, you're a risk. And it doesn't sound good to say that. It sounds like I'm calling for some kind of eugenics. I'm not calling for forced eugenics. I would like to see natural eugenics, and unfortunately what we have is dysgenics in the country right now. We have that's being forced upon us through government decisions. So supposedly this guy's like some savior of civic nationalism. It's a bit tiring.
Jane Elliott now introduces a setup designed to force any reluctant volunteers to finally step into the fray.
You, stand up here beside me. Yeah. You, right here. I wanted you, nice blue-eyed white people, to find out how it feels to be on the receiving...
Notice, now she's not just saying blue-eyed, she's saying blue-eyed white people. Very, very interesting how these things get snuck in there. Now it's explicitly racial. Just the way I like it.
...receiving end of that which we allow to be handed out to whole groups of people every day. You don't live what she lives with.
And you can't argue with somebody's experience.
No.
If you don't see the other person's reality, then and you don't face it, you're...
If you don't see the other person's reality, what is going on here? Is there another dimension that you're in somehow? I mean, like, that's what it seems like. And I mean, it's been said before by very smart people like Scott Adams, right, where he has this analogy that people are seeing two different movie screens. I think that's a pretty apt analogy. But you know, what reality exactly are we seeing differently? I would like to pinpoint this, and we will get to that very shortly.
You're almost part of the problem because you don't see any reason for change it. Change what? Change what? In the UK, the racism.
Yeah, change what? Well, I can think of plenty of things I would like to change, but you're not going to like them. Sorry, it's going in the opposite direction you want. I'd like to see the family uplifted. I'd like to see whites able to advocate for themselves without persecution. I'd like to see censorship done away with.
It's very subtle. It's very subtle. It's standing in a queue, waiting to be served, and the lady at the desk or the reception serves the person behind you, or the white family that's just walked in through the door, or my son running for the bus and getting stopped by the police. Why are you running? I'm running for the bus.
Okay, so these are the examples that were given, right? So in the UK, racism is very subtle. In other words, it isn't anything like what you're seeing in this presentation. It's subtle. You almost can't notice it. I can notice this Miss Elliott. You know, she's not being very subtle. I don't think that's lost on anybody, right? It's not subtle racism here. So I think she kind of is shooting herself in the foot when she admits, well, the racist, but she can't say it's overt. She can't say, oh, we are being shipped into camps and we're being, you know, forced to, you know, our wages are being cut. We're not, we're being taxed at a higher rate than white people or something like that. No, it's nothing like that.
Her child learns something like this every time he walks down the goddamn street.
Stop and search.
And in the United States of America.
Any kid stop and search because there's a knife problem at the moment.
8 times more likely to be stopped and searched as a black boy.
But you keep saying statistics. I'm sorry, statistics.
That's how it is. It's the way it is.
Everywhere, all teenagers out at night.
It's a statistics show.
The police will stop them and look for knives. It doesn't
you are
matter
8
what colour
times more likely to be stopped and searched.
One of my best friends is a local Bobby on
You're not hearing me.
Denying the
hearing you,
facts.
but you feel you're
and now
unique.
You're getting defensive.
You are not unique.
You're still not hearing the point.
Okay. Well, I am so happy that we finally got to my favorite topic, statistics. This is wonderful. Okay. So, the point, what does she say here? What's her criticism? Black people in the UK are 8 times more likely to be searched. So, I don't actually think I have the statistics for the UK, but I do know that in the United States, blacks are 7 to 10 times as likely to commit violent crime as whites. So, potentially, the police are not even searching enough black people, right? But let's just for the benefit of the doubt, say that they're doing exactly as good a job as they need to do. Another statistic from the U.S. is that 52% of homicides are committed by 13% of the population, i.e. blacks. A lot of this you can get all this in Jared Taylor's book, The Truth About Crime, InfoWars, Daily Wire, I think he even has it. So, also, not only that, but whites are almost twice as likely to be killed by police as black people. That isn't that mind-boggling, right? How could that be? Well, and some people say, well, it's skewed because whites are a bigger portion of the population. Yes, but remember, 52%. So it is like the actual numbers are about the same number of blacks and whites committing crimes in that case, and so that argument is mute, right? They are, whites get arrested at roughly twice the rate by police. Blacks commit 8 times more crime against whites than vice versa. Also, a black male is 40 times more likely to assault a white person than reverse. And finally, interracial rape is almost exclusively black on white. So if we're going to go into statistics, well, you've got, you're kind of digging yourself your own grave there, my pal.
I'm totally hearing the point. What I'd like to hear more is what you propose to do to actually change all this.
Oh, wait a minute.
Let's get on to that later. How are we going to change it?
Oh, good. I'm so glad you asked that. I'm so glad you asked that.
I'm bored with this bit now. I'm ready for a tea.
I'm going to play that again.
How are we going to change it?
How are we going to change it? Remember that.
I'm so glad you asked that.
I'm bored with this bit now. I'm ready for a tea break.
What you're doing.
She said, how are we going to change it?
What victim?
What you're doing is blaming the victim.
Where's the victim?
You're saying to her, what are you going to do to change this? She doesn't have the power to change this. No, you did not.
Yes, she did.
No,
what did she say?
She said, and we've got the recording, we've got the tape, you're wrong. She did say we. What are we going to do about it? Now, in my opinion, we know they're not going to do anything constructive to solve this problem because they're not interested in solving the problem. So it is just going to be up to us, isn't it?
What's actually going on here?
This is a lot what happens in society, where people are just in so much
We are in denial. I think you want us desperately to be in denial, but most
Stump.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna get the story of our mulatto friend here, and he's gonna tell us about the stereotypes that he has experienced. Take a listen.
I have a daughter that lives not with me, but she lives in a very middle-class area, a very rural area, and she's the only non-white in her school. I will not go and pick her up from school because of my belief of other parents' perceptions of my daughter because her father looks like I do. Now, you can frown as if to say, well...
Okay, so his daughter goes to a very white school, and he says this openly. It's a very white school. She's the only non-white or something, and it's probably a very good school, right? So I'm a little confused here. Is he not happy that she's going to this school? Because he presumably put her in it, so there must be a reason he put her in it. I'm guessing it's because it's a good school. And yeah, schools which are mostly white have a tendency to be nicer and better learning environments. I don't know why that happens to be, but we all do, kind of. I mean, it's a combination of higher IQ, probably better parenting, more politeness. It just creates a better learning environment. So his daughter is benefiting. That's what I want to point out.
Why? But the bottom line is, after 34 years of my life in this country, that's how I feel.
That's so sad.
It is so...
Yeah?
I feel sad.
Okay, now another reality of it, and ask any of my friends.
Yeah, well, facts don't care about your feelings. Yep, sorry.
Friends, is I talk in terms of I play the game. Okay? If you speak to me on the phone, you will have zero idea of what I look like. You either conform, in which case you get an easy life, or you fight against it and you'll end up criminalised, outcast and removed from the situation.
But Marvin, what you've said, I agree with, but it's not colour. You could be a skinhead and not want to pick your kid up from school. You can be a cockney.
The skinhead can let his hair grow. I'm talking wholly and
that's interesting. So the skinhead can let his hair grow. I think you're kind of missing the point. Like the reason people don't like skinheads isn't that they're bald. Actually, people don't have a problem with bald people. They have a problem with white people who have pride in, in solidarity with other whites, because that's not allowed. And so this is a derogatory term, which itself is another anti-white thing. But yeah, the skinhead stuff. It's just a way of saying. Basically, like you and me, if you're listening to this, probably. I mean, am I a skinhead? I have hair here. I don't have tattoos or anything, but there's probably people who would lump me in with those people because, I talk about being supportive of white interests and I'm an advocate for them, and so you're just assumed that you're hateful.
Exclusively based on the colour of my skin, nothing else. Just to qualify the thing about the school, part of the reason I don't go to the school is because, I'm mixed race, so I'm only half caste. My daughter has got a white mother, which means she's even lighter than me. Therefore, I believe that most, if not all, of the people at that school think she's white. If I
wait a second. So, I can't imagine thinking like this, right? So let me try to get into his shoes, okay? So, the reason he doesn't go to his daughter's school to pick her up is because people are gonna see him and assume that he's this bad black guy, right? And so I guess he's kind of saying that this is the reason that black fathers aren't better fathers, right? It's just racism. If it weren't for those darn white people and their racism, blacks would be much better fathers to their children. I think, isn't that ultimately what he's saying?
Turn up,
Shock.
yeah, then the children will see a different.
And treat her differently.
And again, it's not necessarily because these kids are ignorant, it's because these kids live in an environment that's wholly of white people. I chose to play the game.
That's right.
That's it.
We have to play the game. There is this...
We have to play the game. Yeah. Sorry, okay, that's the way it is. If you want to live here, you have to assimilate. That was the deal. The deal is you get to live in a nice, orderly, white society with nice schools and all the stuff that you like. And, but in exchange, you have to play the game. But apparently that's not good enough for these people. They want it all. They want both sides. So they're reneging on the deal. If you buy into civic nationalism, that's the deal. You come here, you obey the laws, you fit in with everything, you become one of us. But I guess that's not good enough for him. So, you know, maybe this whole thing was a mistake, right? This whole deal was a mistake to begin with because they were not genuine about it from the start.
Game we have to play to get by. Play the game as well. My ex-husband, for example, is in the sporting environment. He's taking on top quality customers, the RAF, people like that. But he conforms. He has to wear a business suit. He has to wear a tie. He has to speak beautifully. He has his short back and side.
Oh man, look at that face. That. I wanna capture that, and I mean, this should really be memed. Please, please, please meme this. Because you could do so many things with that face. Okay, let's continue.
Haircut. He looks immaculately groomed. He's actually a rugby player from way back. He's happy wearing sloppy old jumpers.
Is he white?
He used to have his hair longer.
Is he white?
We have to conform as well.
Is he white?
That's not conforming. You're talking about conforming. He would conform to pick up my daughter from her school. He would not turn up looking like a scruff bag with long hair, bad clothes, bad breath, unwashed, bad shoes.
Oh, snap! She just called this guy out. She is calling him out. She's saying, dude, it's not about race, okay? It's because you look like a homeless person. All right, that's why people are scared of you. You know, she is trying to help him, and he is just stuck on this racism. Oh, it's cause I look black, ain't it? No, you've got long hair, dreadlocks, and you're like wearing this sweater with stains on it and stuff. Your teeth don't look very presentable. I'm sorry, we have standards here in our countries, these Western countries, and yeah, it may not always be about race, you know.
No, it's exactly the same. You're talking about your school environment with your daughter, my school environment with my daughter.
We all agree that it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
What? It is. Sorry.
Yes.
Maybe
yes.
to a lesser degree.
Let's agree. Let's agree to disagree.
But there was the assumption that racism is only particular for people who are black, and I don't actually agree with that. I think there's racism for white people just as much. I've been in this situation many times where I've had remarks made about my person, the fact that I'm white, that I'm blonde, that I'm getting old or whatever. I've come across just as much discrimination in my life as possibly many black people have.
Preach it! Preach it! Yeah, I've come across just as much discrimination. Hey, you can go even further, lady. You can. I mean, at this point, is it really far-fetched to say that white people experience more discrimination than blacks? I think you could make the case for that pretty easily, right? I mean, you probably couldn't make that case in the 60s when this woman was a teacher or whatever. But now, I don't know. It's like, does this Miss Elliott, she only has like one speed. She's just like on this mission, and when the environment changes, when the laws change, culture changes and everything, she doesn't adjust. She never adjusts. She just keeps going, just keep hammering, keep running the same experiment for 40 freaking years until white people get so fed up that they do something about it. And we're gonna go to this point. And now, so to set the scene, they have dismissed the class, if you will, and they're taking a lunch break, and we're gonna get some of the comments from the participants on the brown-eyed side.
The black volunteers feel there is a lesson to be learnt, but one of the white volunteers doesn't think it's fair to label all whites as racist.
I'm getting drawn into something that I don't want to argue about because I don't want to see other people abused. But you are saying that just because you are black...
Oh, man. Ooh, she's really in your face there. I don't think they needed to do that big of a close-up, but that probably does help you empathize with this woman.
Only black people experience racism. I grew up in a country full of people where there weren't any white people. I understand racism just like you understand racism. I don't have to be black to understand what it feels like to be a black person. You don't have to be white to. You can still empathise with people.
When we first started, most of the people in the blues were in complete denial.
And now?
And then some shifted and some...
I just wanted to point this out here.
And then some shifted and some are still in,
maybe
and then some are still, some are like this.
Oh,
no.
Some have gotten up and walked out.
Oh no, no, don't do it. No, go back.
Because they refuse.
There we go. Ah, I can't get it. Anyway, just I thought this woman's nose was
walk in our shoes.
Interesting. Ah, there we go. Well, look at that nose. That's an interesting nose. Why don't they do an experiment where they separate people into straight-nosed and hook-nosed? I think that would be an interesting experiment, don't you think? I mean, what could go wrong? I'm just spitballing ideas here, you know. Take what you will, right? But yeah, let's talk about this. This comment. So she says, you can still empathize with people even if they're not of the same race. And I think that's an interesting question. And I don't know if I have an answer to it. But can blacks empathize with whites? Can whites empathize with blacks? Because it doesn't seem like there's a solution that will make them happy for sure. There's never anything we can do that will, you know, oh, you finally understand how I feel, because they're not looking for that. So yeah, I mean, as far as empathy, I generally tend to think that white people are a little better at empathy, and sure, that can get us into trouble sometimes when we're like looking at a migrant child or something, and oh, we're so empathetic towards them, we have to let them in. But that's almost more sympathy, actually. Empathy is a little bit different, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, right? So yeah, empathy is about, well, putting yourself in the person's shoes, figuring out what it feels like to be them, and that does not necessarily mean sympathizing with them where you acknowledge that, oh, they're definitely a victim in this scenario. So I think it is possible to empathize with black people, but still not think that they're doing the right thing when they come out and buy into all this anti-racism, and we gotta tear down the patriarchy, all of these terrible institutions. You know, I can to some degree empathize. On the other hand, I think it's hard because I don't have that gene set, right? And so a lot of the things, like for instance the warrior gene, if you've heard about that, which some people say predisposes black people for more this kind of criminal behavior where they're more likely to lash out and be violent when it comes to well, especially if they've been brought up in a abusive household themselves, they're much more likely to respond to this by this gene in them is kind of triggered in that circumstance, and it takes control of them. And you know, maybe I can understand that in some ways. I've been sort of taken by anger and stuff, but I've usually been able to keep a lid on that. So, but that's the thing. It's like, how far do you want me to empathize with you? Because if I start empathizing with you to the point where I'm actually like I'm looking and seeing all the ways that we're not the same genetically, then you know you're kind of putting that person into well, a very different role, right? And so at what point do you start looking at rights and stuff like this, right? Because we understand that we don't allow animals, you know, to have rights. And so I'm not saying blacks are animals or anything like that, but I am saying that if we acknowledge that there are these differences, then we can't just say that whites and blacks have the same level of agency just because they're both human or something. I don't think we can say that. I think we have to be a little more nuanced because of the differences that are there. And you know, this is a tricky situation. It's complicated, and that's why generally my leaning is towards a separation and divorce, because it's tricky. You know, you can't just say they don't have any agency, because they certainly are conscious, they can make decisions, but do they have the same amount? Well, with a lower IQ, I think you can make the case. People, some egalitarians or classical liberals will disagree with this strongly, right? They'll say, no, if you're human, you have the same level of agency no matter what. And that certainly makes things easier, and it's nice to wish that on people, but we don't live it that way, right? If you have a greater gift, then you have greater responsibilities, you have more agency and stuff. So these are all tricky points of view, but let's get back to the video, right?
2 hours. It's being picked on, it's being bullied. If you become being a different... You're closing yourself off. Oh, that's rubbish. That's absolutely rubbish. Now, it just means it affects you.
Here's the way it is. The exercise is not over. Do you understand that? Because the blue-eyed people don't.
So there is more abuse to come, if that's what you prefer to call it.
I just want to have a glass.
Jeez. Talk about a mood killer. The exercise isn't over. You haven't seen anything yet. These are the cliche things she says. I mean, who is this woman? Like, she's puts on all this macho. Like, is she actually married? I would hate to be married to this woman.
She wanted people to understand what black people were going through, but she didn't want to understand what anybody else was going through. You know, I hate people putting other people down. It's wrong, and I don't like it. You know, it's not about being black or white to me, and I think it was a bigger issue. It wasn't just about... She made it too simple. She was separating us. There were black people and there were white people, and that was, as far as she concerned, that's all it was.
Right. Now, the SJWs have this problem, and that is that whites have been taught universalism through various means, right? But, and I think they also invented it to some degree. They gravitated it towards it, but they've adopted it. It's been integrated, right? Universalism in the Christian doctrine, and you know, all various kinds of ways, but it was exploited. This universalism was exploited in order to convince us to give non-whites rights in our countries, and to convince us to open our borders to people. And now that societies are sufficiently multicultural, whites are finding out that it was never actually about universal principles. And for some people, that's a really big shock. Wow. I guess they didn't mean it all along. You know, I thought we were on this mission towards progress and to make the world more egalitarian, more fair, which are all things that I care deeply about. And now it turns out, no, it was just a tool to exploit the countries that were more wealthy, more compassionate towards other people, and to use that against them to destroy their countries from within. Oh, well, that's very what a revelation, right? So this is more of the same. I think they've got this guy coming in here to do some more manhandling. So let's skip ahead a little bit here. This will be good.
You may not notice.
No, that's the point. Isn't to be subtle. The point is to be brutal and show the brutality of discrimination as it happens, not individual to individual.
What is with this guy's smile? I mean, I already said I think he's a bird of a navy color, right? But man, he's always got this smarmy look on his face, and he's like,
but system to person. So how
it has to be brutal, you know? It just that's the whole point. That's why we devised it this way, so that the whites can experience what it's really like, even though it's more extreme than any minority would ever experience now.
People suffer as a result of an unfair system.
For Jane Elliott's final flourish, everyone will sit an intelligence test. But she's rigged it, so the blue eyes will fail.
Brown-eyed people, move your chairs back away from these people, because if they can see your papers, they'll cheat.
To guarantee this, she's already given the Browns half the answers and told them to keep it quiet. For the first time, the Blues offer no resistance.
Hopefully it makes them aware there's no way to win. They're in a
yeah, they're very happy to take tests because they're not being berated. Little do they know they're actually in another psychological trap, but that's about to be foiled, as we'll find out.
Lose-lose situation. And then eventually they become resigned to the fact that they have no power. And it's just, might as well sit here and take it. There's nothing I can do about it.
But one...
Yeah, that's what they want for us. They want us to think. They want us to feel powerless. That's what I'm getting from this, is that this diversity training, it's training you for your globo homo multicultural society, the future. Your future is this. You shut up and you don't complain and you just comply with whatever we want and you give us your money. So, you know, how is this person any better than a mafia thug?
One white volunteer in the Brown Eyes is about to derail the test.
Whose test is this?
Hazel.
Hazel's. Where's your test?
Underneath.
Are you checking it at the same time?
No.
Why not?
Because why should I? Why do I have to? What's the relevance?
Let me make it relevant for you. This broad doesn't think she has to check her test.
We cheated on the test, so I don't see why we should be marking it. Well, you gave us the answers.
You didn't cheat on the tests.
Oh man, I haven't heard that since grade school, right? Ooh, that's what it sounded like. Oh. But yeah, you can see her face now. She's in trouble, huh?
Why should I mark it when I know that you've cheated?
Wait just a damn minute. You can, as a white woman, prevent white people from learning for as long as you think you can get away with it. Has that fool learned anything yet?
She's preventing other people from learning as
She's
well.
working hard at it, isn't she?
Yeah.
With the final task thrown off course, the division between white and black surfaces.
Oh, I don't think it was thrown off course. I think the wrong people are learning a lesson here, which is interesting, right?
Once again.
Here was an opportunity to carry out an exercise and see how people react.
You know what this reminds me of while I'm thinking of it? It's all of those articles that came out, you know, around the midterms and around Trump and everything that are like, white women voted for Trump at 53%. How dare they? They're betraying us. That's very similar to this situation, I just realized. Because this white woman, she's saying, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this coalition that I've gotten myself into. I think I'm gonna switch sides here.
And learn from that, but instead what we got was sabotage in effect of the situation. It's not. There's clearly. I think we all understand that this is an exercise, and there were issues.
Now we will never know, will we?
We'll never know, will we? We'll never know, huh? Yeah. Oh, darn. We'll have to keep berating white people because we'll never know if they're actually going to learn. No, but think about this here. What we got was sabotage, is what they said. So the implication is that whites are cheating. The implication is that whites in the real world, in society, are somehow getting ahead. And so that's what she's simulating, right? She's not giving them a fair IQ test, because we know why, right? The blue-eyed would almost certainly do better in that case. But instead, we insert this lie that whites stole everything, and that's why black people don't have it. Yeah, it's just gross. I mean, white people like meritocracy, they like things that are fair, and that's why they just aren't going along with these tactics. It's like, for the anti-whites, everything is justified because of what white people have supposedly done to non-whites in the past. So there's nothing that's not justified.
Controlled environment is about racism, or is about being an underdog because of something you have no control over. Sometimes the system is stacked against you, and those in power may be operating in a way to put you in a disadvantaged position.
Oh man. Sister, let me tell you, I agree with you. I agree with you. But there's one thing you don't know, and that is, now I'm sounding southern, it's that the people doing this, they aren't really white. If only you knew how bad things really were.
Jane Elliott brings her exercise to a close. After 10 hours of struggle, has the exercise revealed the reality of life in modern Britain is still very different?
I like this image here. I'm going to pause it on there. Ooh, that would be a good meme. The Saxon begins to hate. No, but I mean, seriously, like, this is how you get hatred and backlashes in the society, and I'm not condoning hatred or anything, but that's how it starts. It's reactionary. And this woman tried to do the moral thing by standing up to the authority, which is very hard to do. You've probably seen those other studies. Don't remember the name. Somebody in the chat will probably tell me. Where they do the electric shock thing, and they tell people to keep upping the voltage that they send to another person in a room, in the next room, and they can hear their screams, and each time they increase the voltage, they scream louder. And a surprising number of people will push that dial of voltage to the point where it's lethal. And so we know Milgram, that's it. I'll get it here. Why can't I get... Oh, I gotta put those down. I just learned this. I think I was snapping the wrong way. Here we go. There. Milgram experiment. Thank you. Where they tested these people, and they found that a surprising number of people are willing to do whatever the person of authority says. So it's actually kind of remarkable, I think, that we're getting these whites to just say, no, I'm not going to play along with these stupid games that are abusive and immoral.
Jane Elliott brings her exercise to a close. After 10 hours of struggle, has the exercise revealed the reality of life in modern Britain is still very different for white and black people?
I'm 63 years old, and I've seen England change so much. You know, for me it's so difficult because all of a sudden, you know, we've got this multiracial society. It wasn't there when I was a kid, when I was a teenager even. And my kids accept it. They're amazing. I'm the one that genuinely has a great difficulty with it. But I'm learning. And today I think I've learned so much. Thank you.
Oh, God. Oh, the expressions. Oh, man. It's hard to listen to these kinds of white people, right? The ones that just, no matter how hard you push them, they double down on their own apologia, if you will. I'm so sorry. You know, I'm trying to learn, but I'm just from a different era, and why don't I just die already? Because I'm clearly not going to be able to get it, but I'm trying, and oh, isn't this wonderful? All this feel-good garbage. So she says she's learned. She's learned that, and what exactly has she learned, right? Well, this woman has learned that, let me back up here. This woman has learned that white people do not have a future, assuming present trends continue. And she's come to accept that. And everyone in the group is applauding her. How great, how stunning and brave. You've accepted the fact that your race has no future left. Apparently, she's okay with that.
I think I've learned so much. Thank you.
For me, I didn't need to ever change my opinions. I walked in there as a person who feels very, very strongly about any form whatsoever of that kind of behaviour demonstrated by, whether it's one of my friends, one of the children in my class, whatever. I've always felt passionately about that. So I didn't need converting. And to be treated as if I was this pariah who was out there was unacceptable anyway. So I wouldn't pay lip service to her, and my comments at the end were more how disappointed I was.
Well, hold on a second. Comments at the end. We only saw this person in the beginning, so, you know, are they just not... I guess they just didn't show her comments at the end. That seems to be what happened. It's probably because they don't want to give sympathy to this racist in the group, you know. So they're not even going to give her a concluding statement, really. Yeah, they can't do that. But I was gonna say too, I agree. I like what this woman says, and it is heartening to hear her words. But I would say that it's not about converting you, and that's probably what she hasn't really gotten yet. Is that it's not about converting you to anything. It's just about breaking you down psychologically, so that you don't have the will to continue fighting and to continue your lineage or your culture, to stand up for those things which are under attack. And it's really just sick and depraved behavior. Not her, but obviously the people, the anti-whites and so on.
In occasions where people have you know, told a joke and everybody has laughed and nobody realized that that was a racist comment apart from me. So, you know, so you can be in a situation where, it goes completely over your head because it doesn't affect you. So because it doesn't affect you, it doesn't exist.
Ooh, I'm sorry to have paused it there, but oh dear. So she says nobody realized that a racist comment, that it was a racist comment apart from me. Well, what should we call her? I'm terrible with these women's names. Chiquita. No, that's not a good one. I don't know. Marla? Is this? No, it's not Marla. Did I already do Lakeisha? Whatever. We'll go with Lakeisha. So Lakeisha here. Yeah, she says these things. Nobody realized that the comments were racist except for me. And the obvious question there is, how do you know they were racist? Maybe if you stopped seeing victimhood everywhere. If you did that, then you would stop lending credence to the stereotypes. These stereotypes that black women are all, you know, emotional nutcases. You're not helping things by, you know, seeing racism at after every corner and under every nook and cranny. Okay, these microaggressions, they're just things that academics and coastal elites, Blue Jays, made up. They aren't really real for anyone but you. And, you know, I'm an objectivist. I look at reality objectively. And so, since we can't determine intent of these people who said these comments or whatever, maybe they did mean to be racist, okay? What does that mean? They should be hanged or something? Like that we need to bring down the hammer of justice on these people? Come on, look at the evil in your own heart. That is, I mean, and you see this in the woman that just spoke before this. She made the point previously that what is it that you want us to do, right? Because they're never going to tell you that. They don't have a solution. It's because they just want to push you as far as they can possibly push you till they either break you or they make you their slave. I mean, that sounds harsh, but prove me wrong.
And that's not the case. You've just not noticed.
Jane Elliott has said this will be the last time she does her...
Yeah, so because it doesn't affect you, it doesn't exist. Or maybe it doesn't affect me and it doesn't exist. I think that's a possibility. So I'm going to skip ahead to the concluding part where the narrator and host of all this sits down with Jane and asks her some questions. And I'm going to skip over the first question because that's what I'd like to end on. And you know, thank you everyone who's in the chat. Haven't been too active in the chat. Let me just see here. So I'm not seeing any super chats or anything. So, but thank you all for participating. Remember to like the stream and spread the word about this highly underrated podcast and live stream. We're doing good work over here. We need your support. But yes, with that, let me go ahead to the next point, which is here.
Moment of our, in fact, before birth, where if you graduated from high school and you aren't a racist, you weren't. I think you do those things because you're ignorant.
So you're conditioned to do these things,
Absolutely.
to be racist?
Absolutely. And it works. The conditioning is working, has worked for a very long time.
Do you think all white people are racist?
I think if you graduated from high school and you aren't a racist, you weren't listening. You should have gotten an F in social studies.
If you graduated from high school and you're not racist, you weren't listening. Okay, so there's just this stupid stuff about how racism is pushed. You know, more projection. It's like, does she still think that this is happening? This woman is living in a different era. Seriously, like, I'm sorry, you haven't been in a school in a long time. You've been around, you know, on your little jet, getting paid by these big multinational corporations to indoctrinate people and spread this propaganda, and so you're completely out of touch with how the real world is.
That's a yes. All white people are racist.
We are conditioned to the myth of white superiority from the moment of our, in fact, before birth. We are conditioned to the myth of...
Before birth? You hear that? That sounds a lot like original sin to me, doesn't it? We're conditioned before birth? Is she saying, like, even before conception? Would she go that far? We were born racist. Okay. If I don't like the idea of Christians telling me that I'm going to go to hell, I don't think I'm going to accept your BS religion of liberalism telling me I'm going to go to hell just because I'm white and have been conditioned to racism.
The white superiority.
Some people who watched these events today they'll have this interpretation of it, and just bear me out on it, that you met these people, you brutalized them to some extent, you were very hard on them, you made them insecure, you made them question all sorts of things about themselves.
Did you ever see a lynching?
Obviously not.
Of course you did. Would you like to?
Let's stick with the tradition of me asking the questions.
No, let's stick with this. What I do looks brutal to white people because that isn't something they have to live with all day, every day.
But you know the accusation. The accusation is...
Bitch, you don't know my experience. Don't try to assume you know what I'm living through because you chose this cowardly path, and so you've got all of the media, all the big corporations behind you. Don't assume you know what I'm experiencing.
You're manipulating them.
Of course I am.
And that's wrong. You're playing with their feelings.
Yes, and it's wrong when it's done on a grand scale in society. It's even more wrong, but we do it all the time.
You've been doing this for more than 4 decades.
Yeah?
What do you think people are going to say the legacy of Jane Elliott is?
Don't care.
You must care. You've
care.
been doing this to change behavior and make the world a better place. You must care.
Don't care. What people say about me is of little importance to me. Did I make a difference today? Did I make a difference today? Did I make a positive difference today in the area of racism? And that's what I want to do.
So,
What do you think people are going to say?
Well, you know, she says, did I make a positive difference in the area of racism today? Well, Jane, may I call you Jane? No. You have made a very negative impact. And you've basically guaranteed that race relations will not heal between these individuals in this particular experiment. And also between the people watching this 1.5 million people that have watched this have seen firsthand what actually happens when they're put through diversity training. So you've failed. You've failed to be a positive influence. Any way you look at it, right? Because what you've done is you've hardened these people. They now see that non-whites are only motivated by revenge or retribution and not by the desire to be equal. So that is what you've done. That is the legacy that you have had. You've entrenched people further. and you've contributed to this march toward progress, which is really a march towards one of two places: gulags or some kind of backlash dictatorship, fascism style. And that's where you're ensuring that we are heading, is one of those two places. So here we go with our original first question that he asks here.
But I don't think you do those things because you're white. I think you do those things because you're ignorant.
So you're conditioned to do these things. Jane, thank you very much indeed for putting this exercise on and for letting us watch. But there are a number of things that have sprung to mind watching it. Do you feel guilty about being white?
Not at all. I didn't choose it. I can't lose it. Why would I feel guilty about it?
Do you think there are things white people should feel guilty about? All white people should feel guilty about?
Behaviors. White behaviors. Yes. But I don't think you do those things because you're white. I think you do those things because you're ignorant.
So this question of ignorance here, this is very interesting, right? And so he asks her off the bat, do you feel guilt? Do you feel white guilt? And she says, no, I don't feel white guilt. I feel pride in what I'm doing. Miss Elliott, how do we know that... I'm going to play the relativist here, okay? And I'm going to ask Miss Elliott, how do we know that you performing this experiment is not just another act of white supremacy? After all, you were born white, so you were born racist. Maybe you're playing in to this behavior that's ingrained in white people. After all, the very idea of science and control groups and research, why, surely that is just a bunch of garbage invented by white supremacists. And furthermore, how do you know that the stubborn whites in this video are actually contributing to white supremacy, right? The ones who didn't do what you wanted. You know, a relativist might say perhaps that them pandering to these, perhaps that people like you pandering to these groups is the very epitome of whiteness. And so when you really think about it, racists are the true egalitarians when we live in a world of hypocrisy and doublethink. Now my message to whites watching this. I think this video is very instructive, and I encourage you to share it because it is very shareable. A lot of people might have already seen it. But my message is, do not conform. Be like that ginger boy raising his arm at 45 degrees. Well, we don't know for sure. But be like that kid. You know, they always show these photographs of the Nazi era. Speaking of raising the arm, they always show these photographs where the whole crowd is giving a salute, Roman salute, right? And there's that one guy in the middle, and he's got his arms folded like this. He's got this look on his face like he doesn't approve. And this is supposed to be some kind of moral righteousness there, because we do admire people who are able to buck conformity for a better cause. And although there may be some distortions over the truths of World War II and so on, I think it's right that white people look at this photo and they say, hey, wow, that took a lot of courage for that guy to not conform to the rest of the crowd. And it does take a lot of courage. And I would just encourage you to be like that person, making life difficult for people like Jane Elliott and the people who pay her and so on. This experiment is literally playing out to some degree all over the Western world right now. They try to make it as if we don't know where this came from. Like, whites have never even had an inkling of the possibility of prejudice towards them. Oh, isn't this such a novel idea? In reality, it's just porn for liberals to get their, jimmies all, to get their cummies, their feel goods. This gets them going, frankly, is seeing this psychotic woman yelling at blue-eyed white people. But the bitch, the diversity bitch, is your government, your media, your corporations, your school administrators, Hollywood, and Wall Street. Exactly the opposite of what they say is true. People like you and me, we have very little power. We're able to converse on the internet for now. But our only hope is to rely on each other, our families, friends, the fine alt media, internet productions like this show, and also on the goodness of most other white people who, as we saw here, are waking up and are finally ready, after years of indoctrination, to say enough is enough. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.